Okay, so today we're going over the SAM project, Module 6, Managing Data with the Excel Data Tools. So we're going to download our instruction file and our start file and pull those up. And the first step that we're always going to do is going to save our Excel file with a 2. So we're going to go to File, Save As, change our 1 to a 2, and save. So now that that's saved, we double check our name is in B6, and then we can start on the project. So Bao Sang is a project assistant for the 5 Points Group, a management consulting company in Chicago, Illinois. She tracks the consultant projects and billings in an Excel workbook and asks for your help in updating and analyzing the data. So we're going to go to the Kang projects worksheet, which lists the project data for Kendra Kang. Bao asks us to format the data as follows to match the data for the other consultants. So a lot of this project is going to be working with tables, and so far we've only been working with ranges, and there's a lot of difference between tables and ranges and things that you can only do in one and not the other. Understanding the difference between the two is important, and so we're going to start off by formatting B3 through G13 as a table. And we can do that with in styles, format as a table. And we're going to pick the gold table style medium 5. So we just select that one. Our table does have headers, so we make sure that box is selected and that we have the right range. Once we click OK, it becomes a table with banded rows and filter buttons, because that's the style that we chose. And now we want to change the name of the table in table name. So this is in our table design special menu. We can change the name of our table to Kang right there, and we press enter. Now Bao wants you to add a new project for Kendra Kang. So we're going to add the record below. So we're going to copy this. We don't need the 14 in there. We're going to select the rest of this and control copy. And then I don't want to just paste this in here because it won't match formatting. So I'm going to right click and paste special with match destination formatting. So automatically it becomes part of my table. It becomes part of the banded rows, and it matches the formatting of the Excel workbook. So now she also wants you to focus on Kendra Kang's projects with contract totals over $600,000. So we're going to create a custom numbered filter. This is different than conditional formatting. We're actually going to be filtering our data, not just coloring our data. So these filter buttons here is how we can filter. And so we are going to filter under contract total. And we're going to use a number filter of greater than 600,000. We're going to count our zeros to make sure. And now we can see that this filters out anything that's less than 600,000. They are not deleted. You can see that the rows still exist. They are just filtered from our view. So now we're going to so our project should look like this. And now we're going to go to the Valleys project. And for Gabriel Vallis Consulting Projects, we're going to unfreeze the panes because currently when I scroll, it only scrolls these bottom rows. And when I scroll here, it only scrolls these ones. That's because this entire pane is frozen. We're going to unfreeze it by going to View, Freeze Panes, Unfreeze Panes. So now when I scroll, it properly scrolls. So now that our panes are unfrozen, we're going to move on to step 5, where Bao asks you to organize the project by project type and contract amount as follows, displaying the average amount of contract billings. We're going to modify the values table as follows. We're going to remove the filter. So currently we can see that the filter is on location, and we want to remove the filter. So we click the drop down and click clear filter from location. Now we have all of our data here. And now we're going to sort the data in ascending order, first by project type, then by contract total. Now, this is a more complex sort. If this was a simple sort, I would recommend using this drop down and sorting A to Z. But anytime it asks you for more than one sort, I highly recommend you follow this step. So you can click anywhere on the table, and we're going to right click, and we have sort and custom sort. Now this is also in our data column. We can go to data sort, and this also pulls up the custom sort menu. This is very helpful for when we're sorting twice. So that way you sort by the correct thing first. So we want to first sort by project type, A to Z, and then we need to add a level so that we say then by contract field, contract total, and we want descending, so largest to smallest. So now we click OK, and we can see our data is sorted first by project type, then by contract total. So that's a much better option than trying to click this and figure it out ourselves. So now we're going to insert a total row on the values table. So when we're clicked anywhere in the table, this table design menu pops up, and I can just select that I want a total row. So once I have the total row there, it automatically populates this total row, but we want to change some things. So we don't want total, which is currently summing this. We want to change it to average. So when we click on that cell, a little drop-down menu pops up. We have to make sure we click on the cell. And I can hit this drop-down and say I want an average. So now I have an average of the build to date. I also want an average of the contract total. So I'm going to click in the contract total box, click the drop down, and hit average. But now this isn't actually a total row, it's an average row. So we're going to change total to average just by typing it in there. And now we've finished step 5. So on step 6, we're going to go to the WASM projects. And Hannah Wasm manages more projects than any other consultant. Val wants you to summarize the WASM data project data using subtotals. Now subtotals can't go on a table, but the table is great for sorting our data, and then we can turn it back into a range to add subtotals. That's a thing to keep in mind. We can't add subtotals to a table. So we're going to first sort our table in ascending order by the industry field. Since it's just one sort, we can just use the drop down and click sort A to Z for ascending. And then we're going to convert the table to a normal range. There's ways you can do it. You can right click anywhere on the table and click table, convert to range, or under table design, there's also convert to range. Either one works. It double checks that you actually want to convert to a range. We say yes, it gets rid of the filter buttons and the table design button, and each one of these are now treated individually, unlike before. So now that this is a normal range, we want to add in subtotals. So the way we can do that, we take that B3 through G18, and this is in the data part, but if we weren't sure where we could go, we could always search for subtotals. So subtotals are over here in data, but if we weren't sure, we could search subtotals, and we get subtotals. And it says we want a subtotal for each change in industry. We want a sum function for contract total and build to date columns. So I'm going to leave those as default. I'm going to press OK. And now it added subtotals to my range. And the way I can collapse these is by clicking these numbers over here. So I can collapse to just the subtotals, I can collapse to just the grand total, or I can expand to everything with this up here. So that is how our subtotals work. And that's how we're going to leave the WASM project. So now we're going to move on to the Giannis project. And we notice the Giannis project doesn't look the same as the other projects. So we first need to change it to the gold style medium 5. So we're going to go to table design, table styles, that gold style medium 5. And now we have our table. But also our table doesn't have these filter buttons. So we're going to display filter buttons in table design. We're just going to select the box for filter buttons. So now we're done with step 7. Step 8, Bow knows that the Giannis table includes a duplicate record and asks you to remove it. So we're going to use the table tool to remove duplicate records. Once again, this is different than conditional formatting. Conditional formatting would highlight a duplicate value. We want to actually remove it. So in table design, because this is a table, it treats this as one big thing. We can say we want to remove duplicates. So I just click this button, remove duplicates. We want to make sure it's a duplicate across the entire thing. We're going to click OK. And it found one duplicate and it kept the other 11 unique values. So now that we have the duplicate removed, that was step 11, step 8, we're moving on to step 9. We're going to the All Consultants worksheet, which contains a table of all consultant listing for all 5-point group consultants. We're going to freeze the first 3 rows of the worksheet. Now, something to keep in mind, so freezing is on the View tab menu, And whenever you're freezing a pane, you don't actually select what you want to freeze. That does not how freezing works. You always want to be one below and one to the right of whatever you want to freeze. So since I just want to freeze the first 3 rows, I want to be in the 4th row. And since I don't want to freeze in any columns, I want to be in column A. If I wanted to freeze column B, I would need to be in column C, so that way I could freeze A and B and 1, 2, and 3. So instead, I'm going to click on A4. I'm going to go to View, Freeze Panes, and now when I scroll, the first 3 rows stay there. So that way when I come down to this bottom, I can actually see what the categories are. So now we have those heading rows and title. We're moving on to step 10. Bao asks you to calculate the difference between the contract totals and the billed to amounts. We're going to modify the consultant table as follows. So we're going to add a column to the end of the consultants table. The way we're going to do that is we're going to click on row or column H. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say insert, and that's going to insert another column right to the left of it. So now I want this to become part of my table, so I can just start typing. Anything to the right or below a table will automatically add that part into the table. So I'm going to type amount due, and when I hit enter, it automatically becomes part of the table. It gives me the banded rows. It does white font. The one thing it doesn't do is middle vertically aligned, so we're going to have to do that ourselves. So we're going to click on cell H3, go to our home menu, go to alignment, and select the middle align. So that was step C. Step D, in H4, we're going to enter a formula, so we need an equal sign, subtracting the billed to date from the value in contract total. So remember, when it's from, that number goes first in subtraction. Let's use our mathematical brains here. So contract total, and when I click on it, notice this is what's great about a table, is it's saying at the same row that we're on contract total, and then I say minus billed to date. So now the best part of a table is when I hit enter, it automatically puts this into the whole table. And we can see it's actually the same formula all the way throughout. It's saying the contract total at that spot minus the billed to date at that spot. So it's a very handy formula, or very handy in tables. So that automatically happened for step E. Moving on to step 11. She also wants you to make the following calculations in the range K4 through K6. So I'm going to come over here, K4 through K6. In the projects, we're going to use the count A functions. We're going to type equals count A. I always hit tab so that way my parenthesis shows up. Now, this is a great thing about a table as well. Initially, we would have to either come over here and click and drag all of the project IDs. But a table allows us to do something cool. So if I move my cursor right above project ID, I get this little down arrow, and that allows me to select all of the project ID in table consultants. And I can see my formula bar, that is what's here. Now I could also type this myself. I could say consultants, and it starts to pop up. I hit tab, but I don't want all of consultants, so I make a square bracket, and I say I want project ID. I hit tab, close my bracket, close my parenthesis, hit enter, and now I have a count of all my projects. That's the same way. I'm going to do the same thing for contract totals. I want equals, I want sum function, and I want to sum the contract total, so I'm just going to come up here and use this little down arrow. Oh, I equals sum. There we go. And now I'm going to come contract totals, and I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to do the same here. Sum, down arrow. We want billed to date, and hit enter. So now we have our numbers added up here in K4 through 6. So now Bao wants to make it easy to filter the consultants table based on the project type and location. So we're going to add slicers to the table as follows. So we're going to insert 2 slicers. So this is a table feature. So we're going to click on the table. And when I go to table design, there's insert slicer. So we're going to do 2 slicers, one based on project type and one based on location. So slicers are a great way. When I hit OK, it pops up. But slicers are a great way to filter our data very quickly and easily. So now we want to move these to, well, first we got to change the color. So we're on our slicer menu. We want to change it to light yellow slicer style 4. Light yellow slicer style 4. Click on that slicer. Okay, so our slicers are the right color now. We just got to move them to the right spot. And so we are going to move the project type slicer to J8. And I know it can be very hard to see J8, but if you click on 8, you can see that I got it in 8 and I'm in J. So as long as it's in J8, and then I need the bottom of it to be in JK14. So 14, I need to make it a little bit smaller. It's actually too small for my liking. And it should be in K. So K14, which should be that bottom right-hand corner. And then location should be in J16. So J16 to K28. 28K. Great. So now that our slicer is repositioned, the last thing we have to do is, since we have slicers, we don't really have a need for these filter buttons. So we're going to click back on our table to get to table design, and we're just going to unselect filter buttons. Now our sheet should look like this. Double check your sheet against all of these. Double check and then press save and then turn it into Cengage. Make sure it's the one you most recently worked on and that you are uploading the correct file into As You Learn. We go ahead and submit. Double check your grade. See if we got 20 out of 20 this time. 20 out of 20. And if you got anything wrong, go back, fix any of your mistakes, and resubmit. Thank y'all.